You want to drive faster? Listen in as Kinch Rendell, an SCCA National Trophy winner and multi-time Pro Solo champion himself, interviews the best autocrossers in the land. He talks fast and drives even faster. And now here's your host, Kinch Rendell.
This is a fun interview with Scott Fraser. He was your 2012 Solo Nationals Driver of the Year. He has 4 championships, 2 in CSP in 2012 and 2010, and the 2 he didn't count that I just did were Cam Sport in 2014 and 2015 in the Cobra 427. Get this, he went from a Miata CSP 143 horsepower to, I believe, over 500 horsepower Cobra. But guess what? They're the same dimensions. Just a little bit more power. I saw that he had 12 trophies so far at Nationals, and in Pro Solo he has 4 championships. This is fun. Scott has lots of stories. And I'm still really hoping he comes up with a picture when he was racing on rollerblades. That's his background. He didn't race go-karts or something else to become fast. I hope you enjoy.
Scott, welcome to the show. Can you tell us where this all started for you? What got you into autocrossing?
Well, I always liked driving fast and going fast in anything I could. And pretty much I inherited my sister's Volkswagen Rabbit convertible. The one that everyone makes fun of, triple white, hideous car, and I hated it. But one of my neighbors was like, oh, yeah, you should come autocross. That's the same suspension as my GTI. And basically we jumped in the cars and went down to an autocross when I was just in high school.
So you were 16 when you started?
My first autocross was, I think, 17. I did one event and then started saving money and buying parts out of a junkyard to modify a Volkswagen Cabriolet.
So what do you think hooked you? What do you remember about that first event?
Oh, well, I always liked driving fast, and I might have been driving in the hills and mountain roads, and I knew it was safer than what I was doing. So
you were actually bright enough at 17 to go, this is where I should go ahead and play. Did you do any other kind of racing, bicycling, go-karting, anything before that?
Okay, so I started rollerblade racing when I was about 12 or 13. And I got on a speed team and was sent all over California to basically race inline skates.
Ovals? Like in an oval?
No, we actually did 100-meter, 500-meter, 10K, 50K. When I was about 15 years old, I did Sea Otter Classic. I think it was 2 hours plus 1 lap around Laguna Seca. So at 14, 15 years old, I went down Laguna on a pair of skates, and we were clocked at over 50 miles an hour with pretty much just a helmet on.
Or do any photos exist of you doing that?
Any photo? There's not many. I think 1 or 2. I need to dig them out.
You should send us some. We won't Photoshop them or anything, but in case you don't have short shorts on, we might fix that for you.
Oh, yeah.
So rollerblading was the first racing of any kind?
The first real competitive, trying to win thing was rollerblading.
Fascinating. Yeah, that's something growing up in Texas out in the country. Never. Do you still have a pair of rollerblades you could bring to some of the autocross events?
Oh, yeah. For a while there, I was getting a free pair of skates a year, however many bearings, wheels, all that kind of stuff. So I actually saved 2 of my good old boots, pair of frames, and a couple of years ago I started playing roller hockey again, and I've kind of tapered off from that. But yeah, I still have all the stuff.
So did anything, except for the speed and enjoyment, maybe adrenaline, did you think anything came forward from that into autocross? Are lines important and such?
I think a lot of people came from some form of competitive sports or something. You talk to a lot of people that I autocross with or that we autocross with, and you find there is a common thread of oh yeah, I used to BMX bike, I used to do this, I used to do that. Well, I think the competitiveness is something that you just always have had. And autocross is another way to do it.
Yeah, I think of it as the ageless way to compete without beating yourself up too bad.
Oh, yeah.
So you started with the VW Rabbit, and you started building another car. Talk about some of the cars you've raced over the years.
So I started with the Volkswagen Cabriolet. Then, as I built up the suspension for that, I was able to buy a GTI, save my money, buy a GTI, and then transfer all of the Cabriolet modification stuff over to the GTI. So then I actually lived in Colorado when I went to automotive school. I got to do one event in Colorado, and I believe Stapleton. I met Kevin and Ian because they were both in the Volkswagens too.
Yeah.
And they harassed me because I built it more as an IT car instead of an autocross car. So I was only able to do one event out there because I was shoestring budget, trying to just, build my car and go to school. And then,
I'm glad you mentioned the school because I know that you're a mechanic. Does that tie into some of this? Was something always you liked? I think that we'll talk about this with setup and having a clue what you're doing. I think that's a good advantage for some people. So you were out here, you had a GTI, you knew what you're doing somewhat, you became a mechanic.
Yeah, I actually started working on cars pretty much when I was born. My dad's always been into early hot rods. I grew up building 1933 and 34 Fords. So, I went to Fremont Drag Strip, which is no longer there. I think it closed in 87 or something like that. So, as a kid, I got to see, racing, or at least drag racing. So growing up, I was always playing with cars, always breaking them. So it was kind of like what I wanted to do, going fast and then working with cars.
So autocross fit right in. So after the GTI, I know at some point here we get to really fast Miatas I've watched you race around in. What after the GTI? You moved the suspension over, raced that for a while.
I raced that for a while, and then I was looking at putting aftermarket electromotive fuel injection in it to take it to the next level, and I was introduced to Vic Cias. And at the time, he had a BSD Z car. He had his 240 that Andy Craig won in 97. And he was looking for a co-driver, and he's like, hey, yeah, you want to come drive this? It's way better than your Rabbit. And he's like, I'll teach you how to drive. You can help me work on the car. It'll work out. So I drove with Vic, and for my first real season, I started in 2000 my Rabbit. And then as the season ended, I jumped into Vic's 240Z. So pretty much my first real season of autocrossing, I was driving with Vic.
And how experienced was he at the time?
I don't even know how long he'd been driving. I know it was at least, I'll say in the 80s.
Wow. So literally, I would say it's so important. On my business podcast, I always mention having mentors. It's like you got a mentor right there, a tuner. You got to help probably work on the car. What did you take out of all that? Was he a mentor looking back? Did you learn a ton?
He was rough to deal with at the time because he was very blunt. This is what you do. This is how you do it. It was love-hate, I guess you could say. I like driving the car, everything else, but sometimes it was pretty rough to drive. And it was a brutal car to drive. It didn't have power steering, no ABS, and it had a 6-cylinder, and heavy, big front tires. I think we were running 245/16s. So my hand slipped off the steering wheel. I punched the A-pillar, ripped thumbnails off before from the steering wheel coming around and grabbing me. And the last year we drove it was 2000, was, for 911, all that. I think we blew up the rear output flanges of the diff 4 or 5 times.
Oh.
My first year at Nationals in that car, I think my second run, the first day, we blew up the output flange of the disc, didn't know what happened. So I just sat out because I was so disgusted. So I finished last my first year at Nationals.
Right, you righted the ship.
So when something like that happens, you're disgusted with, all this time, all this money, nerves, everything else. And then you just don't even want to run. All after the award thing, someone came up to me and they go, "Scott, why didn't I see you run the second day?" I go, "Oh, well, we hurt the car." "Oh, well, you could have driven my car. Why didn't you ask?" And I realized the camaraderie. And by the time you get to Nationals, everyone knows that, you spend a lot of money and you're there to race. So, that was like kind of an eye-opener right there for me.
Yeah. So how many events do you think you made that first year? First full year?
So when I was driving my Rabbit, I made every single event I could. Sometimes, I think my max was 2, maybe 3 events in a day. If it could be this or that, it was just, hold on. Sorry, I was getting another call. I tried to make every single thing I could.
So literally, that's one thing I think people don't realize. I didn't realize the first couple of years, seat time is important. And a lot of people make a whole bunch of runs to begin with. And then I would say you went from front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive and hopped right in the fire of something powerful. And like you're saying, no power steering, no anti-lock brakes. How much did that probably help you grow?
Well, what's interesting is starting off front-wheel drive, and I come to find out a lot of people started off with Volkswagen Rabbits, Scirocco's, stuff like that. It taught me, because I had a Quave differential. You had 2 hands on the wheel. I didn't have power steering in a Rabbit. So everyone still, to this day, makes fun of me how close I sit to the wheel. And it's because I grew up with no power steering. You had to be able to muscle that car around. And being front-wheel drive, I learned how to left-foot brake. So from the very, very beginning, I learned some things that have stuck with me throughout the years.
And that's the question I have. Talk to us more. So do you still left-foot brake? Do you always left-foot brake? What are your thoughts there? I
always left-foot brake. I still drive like a NASCAR, and my chest is on the steering wheel for most parts. It took me a while. I was probably using too much left-foot brake, and at one of our local schools, it was an advanced school that actually Vic put on years later. The year I was driving with Rob Boynton, I don't know exactly what year that was, and I had Andy McKee as my instructor. And Andy rode with me, and he's like, "Scott," he's like, "you're just using too much left-foot brake." He's like, "You're using too much left." He's like, "See, this is how you do it." And then he drove Rob Boynton's GT2. And I don't believe he made it through the thing that he was harassing me about. But it did stick with me, don't use much left-foot brake. And I didn't realize how much I was overly using my left foot until I jumped into the Miata. And
did you jump straight into a CSP Miata, or what was the first Miata you drove?
Yeah, I jumped straight from 550 rear-wheel horsepower rear-engine car into a 143 horsepower Miata in CSP.
Was that with Tom?
That was actually with Rick Gould, and that was Chris Cox's old Miata. Chris and Rick, they built the car together. I believe Talara Miranda won in that car. I don't know what year it was. A while ago, we'll say. So I jumped in back.
Yeah, I probably didn't see you drive that one. I've seen you drive Tom's back in the day, and you guys have to go check out the YouTube videos to watch how fast Scott can drive these cars. There's a reason why he has 2 championships, plus 4 Pro Solo championships, plus the cam skills to have more championships. Amazing.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun driving with Miatas. I jumped in with Rick, and he at first wasn't too willing to make too many changes. And I did electromotive install in the car. I did a lot of basically learning about Miatas. And then Rick moved. He's about halfway through the first year of driving with him. He goes, "Oh, I'm moving to the East Coast." I think he moved to West Virginia, and kind of, "Hey, sorry, thanks for doing all the work on the car. I'm selling the car and I'm moving out of state."
So that led you to what? Then what did you quickly do?
I'm not sure if it was that year that I jumped in. I got something to drive. I believe I jumped into a guy from Washington named Ryan Carrig. I jumped in his E36 97 or 98 M3 that had a twin screw supercharged 2.8 liter aluminum block car. That dynoed 375 at the rear wheels. I drove it once in Atwater with 245s. At the Pro Solo, I had it, or at the National Tour. And then within that 1 week time, we went from 245s to 275s, changed spring rates, flared the car, and then drove it at the Pro Solo. And I almost flipped it because we weren't able to get the car low enough with the 275s, and we had so much more grip. But then he put the car back on the trailer, went back up to Washington, and offered me a ride for Nationals that year. So I jumped into that. Of course, we're missing a few years. So I drove 2001 with Vic and the Z, 2002 with Navi Kahangi and an E46 M3.
In what class?
That was street mod. So I went BSP, street mod in 02, and sometime middle or end of 02, Vic sold a Z car, and he bought a 95 M3.
Yellow.
Yep, the yellow car. And he said, "Hey, Scott, you want to co-drive with me in 2003? And later on, or, looking back at it, I think it was, "Hey, Scott, you want to help me build a car?" So we started building that.
Is that the year that the back of it broke and it flew up in the air and turned like 180 degrees in the air?
No. This was the year that he had some work done by someone else, a new clutch installed before Nationals. I was second in points for the Pro. Cannell was first. And every event we went to, I was beating Vic at all the Pro Solos. And got to Nationals. We pulled the car off the trailer, at the time an open trailer. Drove to the quarter car wash in Topeka. And I go, "Oh, do you hear that click?" And Vic goes, "Nope, that's always been there." "Okay." We do the Pro Solo practice starts. Everything's good. I go out for my first run, first day of Pro. Get about 50 feet out. Start to spin the tires. I roll out of the gas, start to get back in it. I hear a bang. I go, "Oh no, I blew up first gear." So I go to reach for second gear, and there's no shifter.
Oh.
So turn the car off, get out of the car. At this point, I'm used to stuff just blowing up, being, driving the Z for so many years. So I jump out of the car. Everyone comes running up, like, "What did you do now?" So we start to push the car. He's like, "Why don't you use the next gear?" I'm like, "You show me where the second gear is." And he looks in and he goes, "Oh, no." So we start pushing the car off the line, and the whole shifter assembly falls out, and someone trips over it while they're pushing it.
Oh.
What had happened? Oh, yeah, you haven't heard all the wonderful stories of blowing things up. What happened is the drive shaft wasn't, I guess, fully tightened, so it spun on, the outer axis of the output flange of the transmission. So it ripped out all the shift linkage. It hit the bottom of the floor, and it broke the ear off the end of the transmission.
Ow. Yeah, you guys didn't race that anymore that weekend, huh?
We got parts shipped in for Nationals. I ended up jumping into a 16-valve Scirocco in street mod. Vic jumped into, I'm having a mind blank. He jumped into a Honda.
That's okay. So tell me this. How much do you think it helped you jumping into these different cars? Unlike me, who stuck with the same car forever and ever, it seemed like each time I did a car.
Well, what's great with jumping in all these different cars and just, going around finding whatever I could jump into, I found what I like, what I don't like, and how I'd change it to make it what I would like to drive.
Okay, so, and expand on that, so setup. If you're talking to any of us that want to figure out how to set up a car, it sounds like you would suggest we set it up to our liking.
For the most part, yes. I would look at it as certain people drive cars different ways. They're looking for different things. I mean, ultimately, we're going to have almost the same, but you're going to have little this or little that because I trail brake into a corner, because I left foot brake. I might like a car a little bit looser than someone else. And
I totally agree with that. Yep.
Here's an example with Tom and I. Tom and I, when the day was perfect, Tom was right there with me. He beat me a few times. We went back and forth. If the car was a little loose, a little bit too slidey, my times would be still pretty close to the same. Tom would drop back a couple seconds. So even without talking to Tom, just watching his times, I'd know, okay, the car is too loose. I'd change the car, sometimes not even expecting it, but I would go faster because, I could drive around the problem a little bit better than Tom could. But we'd both go faster in the end.
Yeah. I totally agree with people that get in the Civic usually with me. They're like, wow, it's so loose. That's only if they don't left foot brake is what I found. Because to me, it's not loose at all unless I don't left foot brake. So I can totally agree with that thought there. What got you into, I consider you're good at setup. So is this what you learned this whole time jumping in these different cars? Was that something you were always tweaking, playing with? What's the thoughts there to learn how to do car setup?
Basically trial and error. I mean, I'd get in the car and go, oh my gosh, I can't drive this. And I'd go back and, well, why can't I drive this? And I'd start looking at in-car footage. Okay, well, was it me? Did I drive in too deep, or was it the car? So another example is Tom's car. I jumped into Tom's car and I go, Tom, this car's, doing this or doing that. It's pushing. I can't get on the throttle because I'm going to knock off the cones on the other side of the corner. Can I make a change? And when I first started driving with him, he's like, well, I kind of like my car how it is. You can just change your driving style to how the car works. And I'm all, well, let's just test this. If it doesn't work, we know how to go back. We're not going to go anywhere unless we try something. And Tom was actually pretty open with he's like, okay, well, I'll let you make one change. So I made one change. Come back and well, did you go faster? Yeah. Well, was it because you knew the course better, or was it because the car was easier to drive? Well, the car was a little easier to drive. Okay, well then, can we go a little bit more than what we just did? You need to test and find that breaking point.
Yeah, what I'd say, you were okay to experiment, to find out. Let's have a theory here. Let's try it, see what happens, and then, like you said, go even further. Find the point, I guess, of diminishing returns or slower times.
Yeah, and that's actually how we've been working with the Cobra. The American Autocross Series guys, they've set up a practice course, and whenever they have an event, over in the corner, they have a 20 or 30-second practice course. So we'll do 3 runs, we'll come back, we'll make a change. And we'll just do 3 runs. The course hasn't changed. Of course, times change and the heat and the this and that, but we can look at all of our data and our times and go, well, was that better or worse?
And you already mentioned looking at video. Do you also actually collect data you're looking at?
Yeah, we've been using SolarStorm. It's really helped. It's been amazing. We can, as a driver, you can go, well, oh, that just felt better. But if you don't really have data, you don't really know what's happening. You might have just, fixed one little corner or taken 10 feet off of a U-turn, but you don't know why you went faster.
Yeah, so are you looking at things like max Gs and time, like, I guess, distance through a feature, compare that, and then compare the segment time?
Yes.
Yeah, well, give me this. Top 3 tips when you're looking at data, or top 3 things you're looking at for data.
We're looking at section times and we'll overlay, let's say 2 runs, the 2 best runs, or, your first run versus your second run. Or with Bruce and I'll look at the 2 runs and I'll focus on, hey, why was I faster here? Or why were you faster there? Because working with Bruce, I was like, Bruce, there's places that you're going to be faster. And he's, no, you're always going to be faster. I go, well, let's just wait. Let's just do a run and see what happens. And I found some stuff that he was doing better, some things I was doing better. I found, like you're saying, G's, entry speed, exit speed. But the biggest thing I found is distance. Shorter distance, even in the Cobra, it makes 850 horsepower. Do you think taking a little wider line, being able to get on the throttle a little bit harder, would be faster in that car? Sometimes it's a shorter distance.
Yep.
So every single run, I break it down, okay, and I do really quick. I just do the segment times. And then if you see a big difference in the segment, then I'll go back and I'll find out why. Was it distance? Was it speed? Was it G's? Or was it just the right line?
Yep. One thing I always caution myself on once I realized it with the TrackMate data, I would look at the segments before and after as well, because I found I could move half a second forward or backward through a segment. I guess it really depends on where you're setting them up at. But I'd want to caution people that literally you can come into a segment so much better at times depending on what you did before. You might have really screwed up and gone really deep and wide 5 seconds before you came in the next one, so you had a much easier entry. I'm not sure if you ever noticed that and if it's as easy to look at, but I really noticed that on the TrackMate, that sometimes I could fool myself as to what was fastest.
Yeah. I've seen that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I've seen that too. It's, where you end up. Did you really, try to carry too much speed and it botched the next section where you can't get on the throttle? But for the most part, I'm just looking at very quick, easy, because a lot of times you don't have that much time. You come back into the pits, you need to spray the radiator, you need to do this, do that. When I won in 2010, we had a lot of people helping. It was awesome. As a driver, you basically just get out of the car, and your team or friends would come help do whatever they needed to the car. And I had Craig Klippel come over, and he'd take the GoPro video out. He'd take Solo Storm or whatever, and he'd watch the run. And he'd first show the next driver that was going into the car, see what he did here, see this, this is where I want you to focus, do this. I mean, he was pretty much a coach.
Yeah.
And then after he'd tell the next driver going into the car, he'd tell Tom in this case, after he got done telling Tom would go over to the car, get in the car, and I'd jump in the truck and watch the video, and he'd tell me, okay, this is where you did better, this is why you did better, this is what you need to change. And actually, 2010, we weren't using SoloStorm then. But it was the same thing. Go over the data really quick, see the points that you can fix. And we weren't looking for many. It was like 1 or 2. Just fix this. This is all I want.
So give us more on that mental aspect. When you would come in from a run, if you maybe always had data or sometimes you didn't have data, what is your routine if you don't have to work on the car and check tire pressures? What kind of routine do you have between runs? That's part of it for sure, like you were just explaining.
Well, what I do is I basically sit with the other driver and say, well, this is what I did. These are the points that, jumped up and scared me. This is where I want you to focus. I found that this point I screwed up. So I want you to nail this one section. Just do this. And then drive the course how you normally drive it.
And probably basically you're telling yourself the same exact thing. This surprised me. I plan to be more aware of that section.
Exactly. But when you start to say it out loud, it kind of sets in a little bit better, and it makes you focus on what's going on.
Yeah, so that's something interesting I realized. It seems like you've always had co-drivers.
Yeah, because I never owned my own car.
I think you have a CSP Miata for sale, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yes. It was takeoff parts from a lot of friends' cars. And it basically started off as I had an M3 as my daily driver. I had a 95 M3. And I found a good deal on a 93 Miata. And I was like, oh, well, I'll buy this for, because. And then I started driving it back.
Cars that are good deals.
Yeah. And so I started driving it back and forth to work and found out I had good gas mileage. And then I was looking for a new chassis to replace Tom's blue car with ABS. And I found one for Tom, always looking at Craigslist. I found one with a blown motor, and I'm like, oh, well, this one has ABS and power steering. I might as well just sell mine and buy this one. And then the downhill spiral, finding and buying old takeoff CSP parts. So,
You're like, I love these things. I love them. So, okay, we've talked about what you do between runs. Let's go to walking the course. How much do you walk? What are you looking for when you're walking the course?
Let's see. I try to walk the course at Nationals as much as I can. And I'm trying to visualize where I'm going to be, what corners look like they might grab me, or what's a crucial corner.
How many walks is as much as you can? Give us is this 5 times, 8 times, 10, 20? Is it your workout? What's going on there?
Well, I'm pretty lazy, but I'll try to walk. It depends, if you're running Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, Friday, and how focused you want to walk. I've walked so many times where I'm sitting around just talking with friends. You might find something that's this or that. Like, oh, hey, I didn't notice that over there or this. I used to do a lot of course walks with Brian Highcotter. And I'm not sure if you've ever walked with Brian, but Brian will be like just kind of in his own world walking somewhere else. And I'd have to like almost prod him and, kind of get him going a little bit so he'd start to talk. Because what I want to do is I want to almost start like a conflict, like, oh, is that where you're going to be walking? I'm going to be over here, and this is why I'm going to be over here. So it almost, he's a really good driver, and he's someone that sometimes we've had difference of opinions of how we're going to take a certain corner. And
do you find yourself, but could that be a case of you walk one line but drive a different one?
Yeah, you kind of go out with a game plan like, oh, I think I'm going to be over here, and this is why I'm going to do it. But when you get to that spot, it's like, oh, well, that didn't work.
Yeah.
You're going to have to change something. I don't know anyone who walks and knows it. I know there's some
I gotta let you know that Bob Tennell, I remember following him here years ago at a divisional, and I didn't know this till well after the fact because I really sucked. But I drove the line that I walked right behind Bob, and literally he goes, my first walk, I walk down the middle of the course. He goes, I don't walk where I drive until my last walk. Well, I just happened to follow him on his first walk, and I was a good little student. I drove right there, like a whole car width off every sweeper. I added a ton of distance and was like, why was I so slow? I drove just like Bob. No.
Yeah, we used to joke around. So when I started driving with Vic when I started driving the M3 with Vic, we joked about a certain corner of, how would Bob take it? So we always joke around, what would Bob do? What would Tennell do? And that was a big joke for a while. I don't think he has a clue. But we're like, oh, yeah, we're just going to get that tattoo. What would he do?
If it's his first walk, it'll be in the middle of the course. I could not believe that. I'll just let y'all know. If you see me walking a course, I'm going to try to walk exactly where I'm at in the driver's seat. I'm going to stick my right arm out because that's about how wide the car is. And I'm probably not going to talk to too many people because I'm only going to walk like 2 or 3 times max, I hope. Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of in shape. I'm not lazy. I just don't want to know it too well in a weird way. Although I am somewhat baffled. I guess I want to challenge myself to literally memorize like some people do and be better. I'm actually better a lot of times when I don't know what I'm doing. Therefore, I think I look ahead. So also talk about that. You walk a lot. How do you look ahead? Or why do you look ahead?
So what's interesting is I've talked to some people. I'm like, so you don't look ahead, or, oh, I have a problem with that. I'm all you have to do is show up late to an autocross and don't have time to walk. You have to look ahead. And you're like, huh?
I agree.
I'm all, have you ever showed up late to an autocross and you can't walk the course? They're like, no, I always get here early. Oh, okay, well, at a local event, are you there for a jacket? Are you there to win? Or are you there to learn? Well, most of the time, it depends what your goal is at a certain event.
No, that's a great point to literally challenge yourself. If it's just a local event, let's say it's a winter series like we have this weekend hopefully coming up, do not walk the course. Often when I set up the course or I design the course, I walk it with a safety walk because they make me. Otherwise, I would never do it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but it's true. You want to look ahead? Don't walk the course. It's
Yep.
The EVO school. They go, okay, well, close your eyes and visualize this. Okay, now this is what we changed. And people are sitting there trying to think. But at that point, they've driven the course so many times that you're only changing one or two things. Try don't even drive or don't even walk it.
So what kind of seat time via schools back when you were still learning did you do, and have you also done some coaching at schools?
Oh, this is awful because when I first started off, I had, I guess you could say I had my private instructor at Vic.
Yep.
He rode with me a lot of the time, but other than that, I really didn't have any schools. I had the one advanced school when I was driving the Corsa, but at that point I'd already driven years. So looking back at it, I've now taught at a lot of different schools. I currently do, I teach at EVO schools when they're in the area. And I've been asked a lot of questions. Well, what do you think of the schools? Would you do it? Do you think it's worth spending all this money to go to blah school? And I've taught at schools. Here's an example. I taught at one school, I won't say what car manufacturer, and I was allowed to bring someone as long as I was an instructor. And then we got there, and I was going to be an instructor, and at the time my girlfriend, who's now my wife, was going to drive my car. And I go, well, can she be my student? And they said, well, no, you brought her, so she has to go with someone else. Okay.
Hey, that was probably the best advice ever given.
It was, but not in this case, because at lunchtime I go, okay, this is how I want you to take a slalom. This is how I want you to do this. And she goes, okay, and I was able to drive with her in the car at lunch break at a very slow speed, and blah blah blah, teach. And so lunch is over. We all go to our cars or wherever we're supposed to be. At the end of the day, we're driving home, and I go, so how did it go? What did he teach you in the slalom? She said, well, he taught me I turned in too early. I go, well, did you hit any cones? No. Hold on, you didn't hit any cones, but you turned in too early. Yeah. And right there I realized that even though it's a free school for her, it didn't teach anything good.
Well, it might have taught something bad, like bad habits.
It was bad. I mean, I should have just left her at home at that point and gone and got my free sandwich for teaching.
So tell me, slaloms, top 3 thoughts or top tips for being fast in a slalom?
I set it up early, and I look on getting on the backside. I try running over the cones on the backside with my rear inside tire.
All right, so I think everybody fast realizes what you just said. The first cone, you want to get as tight to it as possible, probably even backside it somewhat, and be turning all the way back to the second cone and backside as many cones as possible.
Yeah.
And here's the other weird thought I've been posing to people on the podcast. Do you ever find yourself diving in and breaking in a slalom?
Yep, I've done that. Sometimes it depends how you're coming into it. And for you and I and a lot of people who left foot brake, you can get away with it because you can catch the car really quick with that right foot.
Yep. I totally agree with that. And talking with Brian Peters, he said, oh, yeah, in your class, probably since there's so much competition, you got to squeeze out every last thing. But I think it also what you just said, if you left foot brake, for me anyway, it just settles the cars down. It keeps them from being loose. So I literally do that. I've done that, I guess, since the Integra days. Why do you think you started left foot braking? Do you drive a turbo car, or was it the turbo with Vic?
No, it was the Rabbits front wheel drive.
Oh, okay.
In 2000 when I started driving with Vic, I'm not sure. Do you know a guy named Dwayne Comish?
No, not familiar.
Okay. He last year he ran the Starlet, Capri, the old, he drives a lot of really cool cars. but I've known him from like pretty much when I first started autocrossing, and he remembers me from, he remembers me driving my Rabbit. And when I started driving with Vic, he goes, Scott, you know what? You just need to stop driving rear-wheel drive. He's like, you're an excellent front-wheel drive driver. This rear-wheel drive stuff is not for you. Yeah. And in 2002,
did you show him your jacket? Or jacket?
He goes to nationals every year. He's been probably going since I've been born. So in 2002, he was watching the start. Yeah, it was 2002. And he watches Street Mod because he's coming over to watch me. He's been a good friend for a while. And he watches the first corner. And here goes Reitmeyer going through the corner, just flying. Canal going through the corner. Vic, all these. This is when Street Mod was really big and had a lot of top drivers. I'm sure it still does, but I don't.
Oh, you guys are so fast. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, you always pay attention to classes that you're running or you have really good friends in or stuff like that. And Street Mod I've always liked. I've driven there a few years. And the end of the first day, I think it was, Dwayne comes up to me and he goes, okay, Scott. He's all, I can admit it. You can't drive rear-wheel drive now. Good job. That was it. I'm like, okay, I finally succeeded. It's taken, pretty much 3 years, but I can now drive rear-wheel drive. I can hold my head up.
So literally, did it take you several years in those really powerful cars to kind of like click and figure it out?
It seriously took me a while to learn how to drive them differently. And, to be, on top of my game, it'd probably take a little bit of time to figure out a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I had my Rabbit set up so loose that I bought for my daily driver, I was driving my, at the time, FSP Rabbit. It was my daily driver, 4-putt clutch, lightweight flywheel, blah, blah, blah.
Ouch.
Well, you should see pictures of my Rabbit that I had in Colorado. IT car, no insulation. Yeah. Perfect Colorado car. So when I bought a 1979 11 because I always loved early Porsches, and everyone goes, oh no, you're going to kill yourself. Those have snap oversteer, you're going to die. So I remember, one of the first times driving it around, I go, okay, well, let's try out the snap oversteer. I'm used to my Rabbit. Go into a corner, lift off the throttle, middle of the corner, something you never do in the 911. And it was like lazy, and I'm like, oh, is this thing ever going to come around? I got on the throttle, and I'm like, okay, well, that was easy. So my old FSP Rabbit was more snap oversteer than my early 911. That's when I realized, okay, this is going to be easy.
Yeah, the left foot braking, I probably made that night and day. Like, it's nothing. I'm used to a car with no weight back there.
Yeah.
So give us some tips for people that are new. You've done a lot of this teaching at schools and such. What are the biggest mistakes they make, and what do you suggest they focus on? Is it seat time? What is it?
Well, seat time is number one. And not only
seat time with instruction?
Good seat time. So what I was getting at was the whole bringing Nicole in autocross. And, even though it was a school and this and that, the instruction she wasn't getting wasn't helping her. So I'd say definitely get started. Definitely get a school that has reputable instructors. If you got to pay money, you know what, you got to pay money. Or go up to one of the top local guys and go, hey, can you just ride with me or even drive my car? An example is last week I took 2 guys from the dealership, younger guys, who had never been in autocross before. And the one guy is a service advisor. Text on. I'm like, oh yeah, you should come, blah, blah, blah. And he has a 400 and plus horsepower to the wheels, really Camaro. He goes, well, I don't want to take that car. I want to take my Infiniti. I go, oh, perfect. People take all different cars. Just go out there and do it. Just get seat time. So he's the first car out of the day, never driven before. I think he might have gone in autocross once. And I jump in the passenger seat. I'm like, okay, let's go. And I didn't even get to walk with him. So who knows how good his walk was. So we go out. There was not one tire squeal, no aggression. And it was one step more aggressive than driving the Stavy.
What was it, a Sunday?
Oh, you bet it was. Oh, no, this was actually a Saturday because he didn't want to miss the football game on Sunday.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can't drive on Saturday like it's a Sunday, though. Okay, good one.
Mm-hmm. So we go out and we do one run and come back. I go, there's so many things that I want to tell you, but I can't explain them all. So I found one of the local fast guys, Rob Lewis. I mean, we the Bay Area region, we have a handful of really fast drivers. And so I throw him in with Rob Lewis in a Mini. And go, here you go. This will show you kind of what I'm looking at or what I want to see, more aggression. So he comes back, his eyes are big, and he's like, oh, now I understand what aggression is and what you actually are looking for. I go, okay, now you're starting to see it. Then I pulled him out of that car, and I saw Sean O'Boyle and his newer M3 that's all set up. It's all for F Street. So he jumps in with Sean. He comes back, and he has a smile ear to ear, and he's like, okay, now, yeah, we're good. Yeah, that's probably a bad move. So I jump in the passenger seat again. We go out for round 2. Instantly, right off the line, his foot goes to the floor, and we're off. We get to about the second or third corner. There's no brakes, and we're blowing right out the exit side through the cones, DNFing. Like, okay, well, there's time to be fast and there's a time to be slow, but now that you're starting to see, what's going on, we have something to build on. He got a real lesson really quick.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you. So for people to know, riding with other people, once again, it's like having co-drivers. Get out there to really experience it. I mean, I found people that were just kind of at my level. When I rode with them or had them ride with me, it helped. Oh,
it's huge. It's even if you think you're taking the right line, someone else might have a different idea, and then you ride with them, and you're like, oh, wow, I could do that a little bit faster. I could take this line a little bit different. It's huge. Find a good co-driver.
I don't remember a lot of courses, but I remember people doing that in my car. I'm like, wow, that was good. I should do that.
Yeah. You just have to learn. Everything's learning.
All right, this might not be a good question for you because you're driving a original 427 Cobra. What are the top cars that you drove, or some of the most fun, or the best car you think you drove or have driven?
Let's see. I've driven a lot of really fun cars that are, bring a smile to your face. I'm trying to think. Chris and Pilar's FP BMW. That was like the first time I jumped in the car and I was like, wow, this is a real race car. That was the old TC Klein FP car that Mark Bear bought.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Yeah, so we went, Chris won, I got second, and Pilar won FP Ladies. That was like wow, this is a cool car. Then,
so if you, go ahead.
Then almost all the cars that I've been driving, it's just like something else that I'm like really enjoy or really in awe of. For example, like I was a Porsche mechanic for like 5 or 6 years, and I remember when the first GT2 came off the truck, and it was well, 2 years later, I'm autocrossing Rob Boynton's GT2. That's all pumped up. I'm like, this is the coolest thing out here. Because, I was a Porsche tech, and those were like, when they roll off, no one was really allowed to even get near them.
Yeah.
And
so, okay, now let's...
What?
The CSP Miatas?
Now, the Miata was just so... It had something where if you nailed a corner and you pulled together a run, you just got out of the car going, wow, that was good. You had pride in the run that you just did.
I had pride in some of your runs of the Pro Solo watching.
Now the Cobra, the first time that I actually got in the passenger seat, it was already on grid by the time I showed up or by the time I was there or whatever. I got in the passenger seat and, how do I get in? What do I do? I sat down, I buckled up, and after a good run, your hands kind of shake. Yep. I had the shakes just sitting in the passenger seat. And then he started the car. To be able to sit and drive something like that, no one gets to do that.
Yeah, why does he trust you? I mean, what is going on here? No.
Exactly. That's my same thought. So the story is he has a Ford GT that's obnoxiously loud, totally cool, big wings, side skirts, not allowed to run at most events because it's too loud. And I came up to him, and he was talking to Tom, and I'd never really talked to Bruce before. I'm like, what's the story? How much horsepower does that car actually make? And he said, well, it makes 862 at the wheels. It makes 950 at the crank. And I'm all, oh my gosh. I'm all, can I go for a ride with you? I'm all, because I just want to see what that kind of horsepower feels like. He goes, yeah. First run, cold Hoosier should be really fun. So cool. Yeah, I'm in. So I'm, preparing the Miata, my huge beast of a car. And he comes over to me and he goes, well, Tom was telling me you know how to set up a car. How about I do the first run and you do the second run? I'm like, yeah, that's really nice, but I can't afford anything on your car. I just kind of want to see what the car feels like from a passenger seat. We start talking and this and that, and so I drove his GT. And it was an AS event, and we get 5 runs. So he drove his first run. I drove the second run and almost spun it because it was a little lazy in the slalom. You know how a car might start to get a little bit wider and wider, like it wants to spin. Well, I straightened it out, DNF'd, saved the car. Who cares about the run? Finished the run, came back, said, thank you. Sorry I almost spun your car, but, I'm going to go now. I'll leave with my head down. And he was like, you know what? Why don't you drive it again? Well, can I change the suspension? Because he had double or triple Penske's on his car. And he goes, oh, yeah, that's kind of why I wanted you to drive. So I talked to him about why I wanted to do it and what the car was doing and everything else. And he goes, yeah, go ahead. Well, I did 3 of his 5 runs that day.
Oh, wow.
And I think after my second or third run, he goes, yeah, that pretty much settles it. Well, settles what? He goes, I want you to help me set up the Cobra. And I'm like, you remember how I can't afford anything on this car? I can't afford a knockoff on the other car.
For a knockoff mirror.
Yeah, exactly. I can't afford the replica knockoff. So we start talking, and he goes, okay, well, what's the wheelbase on a Miata? Or, what's the layout of a Miata? I'm all front engine rear-wheel drive. He goes, so is a Cobra. I goes, okay, well, what's the wheelbase of a Miata? Well, 90 inches. He goes, so is the Cobra.
Oh, wow.
He's like, what's the suspension on a Miata? I'm all double A on front and rear. He goes, so is the Cobra. So basically, you've had the last 7 years of your life basically working and driving and setting up a Cobra.
You're a Cobra setup expert.
He basically just turned up to 11. Everything the Miata can do, the Cobra should be able to do better. So then, over the next few months, we're sending back spring rates and motion ratios and blah, blah, blah. And when he retired from Ford, he was head of worldwide racing for Ford.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, how about you just call up one of your Ford racing buddies and have him drive, and I'll just be over here. So in this, I don't know what year it was, but Jackie Stewart used to be, the test driver for Ford. So I'm like, okay, so you're friends with Jackie and get your, okay, whatever. So I'm like, how about this? How about you just call up Jackie? You and I set up the car during the winter. You call up Jackie, and I'll just be your crew chief. I won't even run. That way I can say I'm Jackie Stewart's crew chief. That works for me. Yeah. Some of the history, some of the stories are amazing. Our our drives to and from nationals or Scottsdale or here or there, it's always, learning something new.
Yeah.
Yeah, not many people know.
That work with since you've always had co-drivers, it's so great to hear all the great experiences and what you've learned and what you also probably helped do from setup to teaching.
Oh, it's the story. It's just like, okay, I'm just some kid that, likes to have a fun time. And I'm sure if you see me at nationals, I'm having a good time.
Exactly. The social aspect brings so many people back and back and back. So, okay, here's another one. I mean, this may not apply to you once again. If you could drive anybody's car or build any car, what would it be?
I don't know.
I'm keeping a tally. I mean, anybody's current car out there? Anything you would like to hop into?
I like to drive everything. But I don't know if one sticks out in my head that would be like, oh, that's the car.
All right, if you can build any car then, does anything stick out?
Years ago, I was looking at building a C-Mod car and selling my 911 to do it. I almost bought Guy Anthony's old C-Mod car from Al Cram. And I wasn't able to sell my 911 quick enough, which I'm glad I didn't. Because now early 911s are worth way too much money, or they're actually worth some good money now.
So tell us this. Go ahead.
That was the class I was looking at because I figured I could afford it and I could be competitive on a budget.
Okay. You didn't want to come to ST and drive Civics? Come on, that's where it was at for a while.
I know. I've never just had the opportunity.
I'll get you. I've got an extra car I can get you. You can set it back up, put some shocks back on it.
Oh, sweet. I was hoping to get one of your Type R's. I knew you had the collection.
Oh, I don't anymore. I would every once in a while look. Hey, supposedly the one I owned and raced forever is in California somewhere. When you find him, tell him I want it back. That's the car I regret selling. That's probably why I don't try to sell any cars anymore. I just try to collect them.
Yeah, I don't. What car would you want to build or drive?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know either. Literally, because I don't win nationals quite both days, overall, I keep sticking with these cars. The fact that someone said you can drive a GT3, part of me says, okay, just drive a car like that because you always said, or at least I've always told myself I want to. I thought for a while I'm going to build an FSP, Chevy Sprint Turbo, only to realize I don't want to wrench on cars anymore. So the thought of building a car these days is kind of like, literally, that's when my car is at Ron Williams' shop getting redone. So literally, I don't think I have the confidence. That's why I should actually drive this car some this year to see, could I compete in a rear-wheel drive car after a year or two? Can I play around in Superstock or SSR? I have no clue because you guys that drive those cars seem so fast.
It's just getting used to it.
Yeah, that's my hope. And that's what I keep hearing from so many people is literally hopping around cars can help you. And that's something I just have not done. I'm not good at going, hey, can I come drive your car? Even when I'm coaching, usually I'm like, oh, let's not do that.
Yeah, there's been a few cars that I've been at schools, and I go, you know what? I don't really need to even drive your car. I can sit over here and we can work on it. It might be easier if I did drive your car. I mean, I don't tell them that, but if they're not comfortable with me driving, I don't need to drive your car. We can work on stuff, and I can try to use words to explain it. Although in the passenger seat, you're going to get so many things that words, won't describe.
Yeah, I'll totally second that. Riding in the passenger seat, even of your own car, for one, I think everything seems a little faster. But if you're watching, as Patty Tennell said, watch my line, not my feet or hands necessarily. But I do like to watch the hands, especially in video, to see what they're doing or watch myself and see what I'm doing. And one of the photos I was looking at you here, looking ahead, having your head turned. And another thing you said, you sit close to the steering wheel. I have to admit that when I had David Falth in the Type R way back when, he did the same thing. I literally felt like his head was right there on the steering wheel. So I don't know what it is with some of you really fast guys. There's something going on there that being close is not a bad thing in any way I can imagine.
It's just how I had to do it to be able to turn the steering wheel.
So Charles, what else?
Huh?
Okay, what else do you think makes you fast, or what do you practice? You don't really probably have an off season there. Did you ever kart? Do you play video games, track events? What else do you do?
I owned a kart for a little while, but I never had time to drive it because I was too focused on going autocrossing every single time I could. I started off when I was 16 years old ripping through the hills, doing hills drives. If you ever wanted to find me back, high school, all you had to do was find a good driving hill. And you'd probably see me, go by at the speed limit, of course, once or twice. So I did have a car. I do have a couple driving simulator games that I don't play enough. But most of it's just seat time. Going out, making it rain.
How many events in 1 year? What's your max, you think, or max runs, if you ever calculated or could guess?
I couldn't even guess.
So some people keep track. I don't keep track, but yeah, some people get a lot of something.
Oh, even driving at while we were getting ready to go to Nationals, or I think it was Nationals, or maybe right after Nationals, in the Cobra I probably had, on that 30-second course that I was telling you about,
yeah,
one day I probably had over 20 runs in the Cobra.
And that's practicing, changing something, trying something, check it out, do it again.
3 runs, stop, change something, 3 runs, change something, 3 runs, change something. I mean, that was pretty much almost all day. And Bruce and I don't care. He's the first person, okay, what's the car doing? Come over here, let's sit, let's talk about this. And we'll go through what the car is doing, what I'm feeling, what he's feeling, how we can best figure out or make changes. We'll bounce ideas off each other. Well, I think the car's doing this here in the corner. I think the car's doing this. I'm thinking about changing this, and we'll basically come down to one conclusion and what changes we want to make. And we'll make 2 or 3 changes and then go. So an example of that is at the Cam Challenge this year, I was dirty. You look at everyone else in that whole grid, and I was head to toe, like, dusty, dirty, greasy even in some places, like elbows from rolling on the ground. And I go, Scott, why are you so dirty? I'm all, because we changed the car. You see someone who wants to win, they get down there and they do it right then. And they're like, oh, yeah. Well, how many other people on this whole grid are dirty right now? There are a couple, but that was disgusting.
Yeah, so you're okay to experiment, obviously, when you can, working with a co-driver. I mean, you're selling on the point of having a co-driver and actually using them to talk, discuss things, change things, and see what you both feel. But also, unlike, I usually don't change anything. That's why I bought the shocks, and we're finally getting on the car. I'm like, I'm going to adjust shocks and figure this out. I'm not someone that's really ever done that. But now I'm seeing the advantages of having a co-driver that can also give you the feel, the input, the thoughts. And I think that's huge for a lot of us, especially, I would even say the newer people. Like you did, you got in with experienced people at a very young age, right off the bat. I think that's huge.
It really did work for me. Another thing that has really worked when I was driving with Tom is camera placement. I mean, we kind of touched on looking at cameras and going over it and what's going on. But let's say after a weekend, I'll go home and I'll look at all of our in-car footage, what our hands are doing, what the car's doing. So we can actually look. I mean, if I'm always running at, the same place. Let's say we're running at Marina. Okay, well, Marina is known to be a pushy lot compared to everywhere else in the whole country, or everywhere else we've ever driven. So I'll watch, and okay, look, I turn the wheel, the car didn't respond as much. Well, what do I want to change? And how do I want to change that? So on a 2-day event, I'm helping someone, and I've been helping someone on the East Coast with their Miata on setup. I go, hey, it's a 2-day event. Go home at a pro solo. Go home, load your video up on YouTube, and call me up. So they'll call me up and go, hey, yeah, what do you think, or what are you seeing? Oh, well, this is what's going on, and this is what I'd change, and this is why I'd change it. Yeah, tell us diagnosing, or tell us setup.
That's a great point of mentoring people, even today with YouTube or what have you. They could send you a file one way or another, Dropbox, whichever. That literally people will help each other. That's another great thing is the camaraderie. I've been so happy with what people will share and talk about what they do, what works for them. Can you think back of any time where you struggle with something that you either made your strength or what some of your strengths are? From a weakness to strength, does anything stand out to you over the years?
I've run into roadblocks with car setup sometimes, and it's just like, you know what? Here, take the car. Tell me what you think. Because sometimes we just get so accustomed to a car and can drive around it that we never know that that's a problem. Example is I took Mike Meyer. I have a lot of respect for his driving. I go, Mike, you know what? The Miata feels good to me, but I don't know. I think there might be something there. And so Mike jumped in the Miata, and he came back, and he's like, oh, well, it feels like it's a little different left to right. And I'm like, I didn't feel that. He's like, rip the shocks off, bring them down, and let's drive them. Let's see if the shocks are balanced. Well, sometimes Tom and I didn't really talk that great, and I was doing one thing, and he was doing another. Come to find out, one of the shocks was about a quarter turn off the other one, and Mike was able to feel it.
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, I'm a hack. You know.
No, not on my scale. Don't worry. I've gone seasons never checking what the compression was even set to, not even knowing. Yeah.
Yeah, bounce stuff off people. Look at your video, see what your hands are doing, see what the car is doing. You know, if you have questions, just go and ask someone. Right?
Yeah.
I've gotten phone calls and this and that before, and go, well, what's your setup? Well, I don't want to give you my setup. Tell me what's your problem. If you tell me, oh, the car is pushing. Okay, well, where is it pushing? How is it pushing? Okay, how's your car turning, middle, exit? Where is it doing what? Is it just one corner or is it throughout the course? If you give good feedback, I'll help you set up your car. But I'm not going to go, this is what my setup is. Because it might not be the same for you.
Yeah, plus the shocks probably aren't valid exactly the same. And that's probably why I got spoiled. When I got the Integra, we did change shocks, and I couldn't tell a difference. So I literally just went back to what David Fell said he did. I said, there, it worked for him. I'm doing that. Now, I think I probably had double adjustables versus a single. I just left it. I think I probably have figured out how to drive around things. But that's all great input. Don't just ask for somebody's setup. Explain what's going on, have some kind of feel, and say, I would like to fix this or change this. That's great advice to learn how to learn.
Yeah, if you can't feel it, have someone else drive it. Watch them. Or have them drive alone. Maybe ride with them once, then get out of the car because you know that they can drive and do stuff. And go, okay, drive it yourself. Because even with the passenger, the car's going to handle different.
Yep.
Last weekend, I drove a friend C5 Corvette, C5 Z06. Go, the car is so loose, I can barely drive it. Well, let's make this change. And then I rode with him afterwards, and I go, okay, you know what? We're not going to deal with shocks. I just want to work on your lines and where you're looking because I felt like he wasn't looking ahead enough. He was driving more off of memory. So I'm all, okay, we're not going to touch the car. Well, as soon as I started riding with him and not going alone, the change that we made the car push. So I'm like, okay, we're not going to deal with it. We're just going to deal with a little bit of push, and let's work on driving. And
I think for so many people, at least that's where I credit myself being in stock class. I couldn't change a lot, so I really think I had to figure out how to drive and not blame the car or blame the setup back in the day. Oh, Scott, it's been fun. What are any other thoughts to close up on?
Just have fun.
Thanks for listening. For the show notes and contact information, please visit autocrosstalk.com. There you can also subscribe so that we can keep you up to date on new shows as they come out. Also, please leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe on iTunes for the upcoming shows. You can connect to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autocrosstalk. You can share your thoughts, your insights, your questions, your suggestions there. Also, share with your friends. Hopefully you found it entertaining and motivating, and hopefully other people will as well. It's been fun, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening, and check back next week for the next show.